Hi everybody, thank you for joining me today for this lesson into the Bill of Rights through a little example from Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing, if you're not familiar, is an incredible game where you basically get control of your own island and you get to go around helping out your citizens. It's a wonderful little community building activity. The thing is, there's one person at the top sort of ruining it for everybody else. If you've played the game, you know who I'm talking about. If you haven't, that man is Tom Nook. Tom Nook runs the island in essence. He has control over infrastructure. He has broad executive powers and pretty much has exclusive control over the buying and selling of goods. If you're new to the Animal Crossing community, you gotta know that this has earned him a bit of a reputation as a cheapskate, as he's been ripping off the people on his island, charging as much as $5,000 for a house customization or $250,000 for a new bridge. And this is rubbing off on his employees too. Now, regardless if you feel as passionate as Isabel, it is important to know that when there's a leader with that much power, the citizens have a right to be concerned. Despite the fact that order may sound like a good thing, we should also have some fundamental freedoms. So we're going to be looking at how we can maybe keep Tom Nook in control. Now, there's probably somebody else that you should know as well. Tom Nook has a right-hand man, and that's Ranger. Ranger is the sole law enforcement agent on the island and will be looking to carry out much of the policy that Tom Nook wants to institute for the citizens. So to protect those citizens from Ranger and from Tom Nook, it's important that we look at the Bill of Rights and the Constitution because that was created in order to protect them from a tyrannical system. This is me, the founder of the island. And as a founder, I found it important that we maintained a Bill of Rights to ensure that we wrote down our fundamental freedoms. The First Amendment of the 10 states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people to peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. In essence, the fundamental liberties we need. Let's get started by looking at this first part with the establishment of religion. Let's picture a scenario where Tom Nook, the self-centered fascist of the island, wants to create his own religion called Nookism. Of course, under Nookism, all citizens of the island must celebrate Tom Nook and respect no other god. Now, ironically, we know that Tom Nook is more of a devil, but let's picture this scenario. So let's imagine, Ranger's gone out into the community and he's speaking with the various citizens of the island. As he goes around to each of their homes, he's going to put up a picture of Tom Nook in this religious idyllic sense. Obviously, this is going to promote and establish religion, and it's going to try to prevent citizens from following any other sort of religion. Ranger's also going to place these pictures in important areas in the community like the town center. So the question is then, is this kind of action constitutional? Even if Nook were to promote the idea of religion in any form, according to a Supreme Court case called Engel versus Vitale, it would be unconstitutional. The reason is because in the case of Engel versus Vitale, a government institution, the New York Board of Regents, which is basically the Board of Education, created a prayer for students to recite in school. The prayer read, "Almighty God, we acknowledge dependence upon Thee, and we beg Thy blessing upon us, our parents, our teachers, and our country." So even though the beginning of the First Amendment says that they should establish no national religion, this is a form of establishing religion because a government institution was promoting the idea of prayer, especially to children who were very impressionable. Therefore, it was violating a fundamental idea in our Constitution. As Thomas Jefferson said it best, there needs to remain a wall of separation between church and state in order to maintain our freedom. We don't want our government influencing our religious life. So if we're to follow the logic of the case of Engel versus Vitale and consider this Tom Nook case, clearly Tom Nook is promoting an established religion which would be unconstitutional. So, the good news is our freedom of religion in essence is being protected because this is going to allow any citizen on the island to follow whatever religion that they deem fit. Now, there's a second part to religious freedom here, and if you look closely, it says that Congress shall nor prohibit the free exercise thereof. What that's going to allow the people to do is practice their religion in whatever way they deem fit, whether that's a form of religion that's conventional or non-conventional. However, we're going to see how that really plays out. And in this scenario, we're going to be looking at how religious practices may push the limits of what can be considered an excusable exercise of faith. And in this scenario, we're going to look at a new character named Shep. Now, Shep is a funny guy. He's liked by most of his neighbors. However, there's one neighbor in particular that he doesn't get along with, and he tends to rub the wrong way. That character is Viking Man, and unfortunately for Shep, Viking Man has some very, very, very unique religious practices. Yeah, it's not looking too good for Shep. He's doing human sacrifice. Okay, yikes. So Tom Nook's in a bit of a difficult situation. His goal is to maintain order, right? But he's also limited by the Bill of Rights. He's not necessarily allowed to make laws that are going to shut down people's religious practices. So despite the fact that Viking Man killed his neighbor Shep, Tom Nook is in a difficult position. Is he allowed to technically shut down that kind of action? In order to maintain order and sanity on his island? Is now every time there's going to be a squabble on the island, somebody's going to turn up dead because Viking Man, got a little upset? Or does Tom Nook have the ability to stop that kind of activity and make it illegal? Well, in order to understand when the government can shut down a religious practice, we need to look at a real-life Supreme Court case. So, in Wisconsin, a group of citizens that were Amish thought that their school system didn't fit the lifestyle prescribed by their faith. They felt it was protected under the Free Exercise Clause, that they should therefore be able to pull their kids out of school in order to educate them on their own. But the state of Wisconsin disagreed. They felt as though that they had the correct law in keeping their kids in school and that they should be able to prosecute these groups of people. The question is then for Tom Nook in the state of Wisconsin, can they shut down these religious practices? And if so, how are they able to prove that they can go around the Bill of Rights? Unfortunately for the state of Wisconsin, the court felt that the Amish community had a better argument than the state. They felt as though that they should be able to exercise their freedom of religion, knowing that they were going to give their kids their own version of education, and that they were able to practice their free religion without interference from the government. And that's because the state didn't really have a compelling interest. You need a really good reason to stop a religious practice from happening. Again, it's one of those fundamental liberties that's prescribed in the Constitution's First Amendment. And so, when we look at the Tom Nook scenario, we need to be thinking about, does the government have a good enough reason to shut down this religious action? Well, when we considered that Shep was murdered by Viking Man, I'm pretty sure that Tom Nook's going to be able to make the case that he has a compelling state interest. Otherwise, people will be able to make exception from murder a religious idea. And therefore, in this case, this is going to be one of those situations where the First Amendment can be limited. The freedom of religion can be limited by the government. So while we can see that the free exercise of religion can go a long way for citizens, like in the case of Wisconsin versus Yoder, where they were able to pull their kids out of school, that's not going to apply for human sacrifice, because that's a very different kind of religious practice, and because the state is going to need to stop the legalization of murder, that is not going to be allowed under the First Amendment. So to summarize everything from today, the freedom of religion part of the First Amendment has two clauses. The Establishment Clause, which protects citizens on the island from having the government force a religion onto them or show favoritism towards another. That's why Nookism is going to be unconstitutional in Nook's practice of trying to promote that religion. And the second portion is the Free Exercise Clause, which protects unique or different religious practices from government involvement, unless it borders on crime. And then the government can step in and limit that activity. Because it's important to note, guys, that no freedom in the Bill of Rights is absolute. And they can be limited in some cases. but it also protects us when necessary against the tyranny of Tom Nook.
Death to Tom Nook.
All right, everybody, that's it for me today. Best of luck if you're studying for AP exams. Take care, and hope to see you next time.